I have to be off by 6:50. Can you text them that?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sports Tonight. I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman. We have Emily Gagnon over at Truist Park as the Braves will try to avoid this. Well, they'll try to avoid. They lost the first two games of this series against the Dodgers, so they'll be trying to get one tonight against the Dodgers. Emily, how's it going over there?
You know, so far so good. It doesn't happen very often here, Scott. It really doesn't. The Braves don't get swept here very often, though it did happen earlier this season here at Truist Park. But before that, it had been a couple of years. So twice in one season, if it happens tonight, I mean, usually this is a very tough place to play. So we'll see what happens. But manager Brian Snitker, who we heard from earlier, he told us that given where they are with injuries, he isn't worried. This team's slump right now, they should be able to get out of it. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. Not the best.
Yeah, so when you look at these games, obviously it's only May. So when you look at these sort of series early in the season, obviously the Dodgers are a first-place team, so you want to play well against them. Do you really put a lot of stock into what happens this early in the season as far as losing a series to a team?
I don't. I think it's good that they, are facing off right now because later in the year, I do think you can take some things away from it, like how a certain guy throws or whatever the case may be. So you might remember that later in the season, especially in like a playoff matchup. But losing a series or winning a series at this time of the year has everything to do with the record, in my opinion. Because let's be honest, at the end of the year, you've seen some really bad teams go on a run and get hot at the right time and make a deep playoff run. So no, I mean, I'm not putting any weight into what's happening right now, other than the fact that it's good that they're facing off.
Yeah, I remember a wise man once told me when it comes to these early baseball games in April and May, winning in those months, it really beats the alternative. That's really all it means as far as the big picture. Now, when you look at it, what about this Dodger team do you think could potentially give the Braves some problems even down the road when we start thinking about playoffs and everything? Because that's a loaded squad, at least from what I can see, kind of headlined by Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, and what's funny, if we just start with Freddie Freeman, I love how he told us on Monday, game one, before it started, that it was very different for him this time around. He isn't emotional about being here. Last season, he could barely keep it together. He cried and sobbed and couldn't even talk. But this time around, he's happy to be here. It's all smiles. And the fact that his team has won the first two, for him, I mean, I think he's the one laughing right now, right? He's like, I am coming back to my home turf and to the team that basically didn't re-sign me, and my team is beating that team. And quite frankly, offensively, Scott, that's to me where the Dodgers do their damage. They are so good offensively. Their bats have been really hot. 16 runs. They've scored 16 runs in the first two games. Of course, Freddie Freeman in that first game had a 3-run shot. But for me, that's where I find them to be the most dangerous, and that's where you have to concentrate and focus. All of your energy is stopping those hot bats and cooling them off.
Yeah, I tell you what, I got so excited when I saw the crowd behind you. I got so into ready to talk baseball that I skipped over our first topic, which is the UGA game.
I know you did.
Yeah, look, I got excited. I saw the bats behind you. I started smelling the popcorn. I started smelling the peanuts, and I'm like, I'm ready to talk some baseball. Then I totally jumped over the UGA against UGA, Florida, world's largest cocktail party. Isn't that what they called it? It's gonna stay in Jacksonville. Now I know to Georgia and Florida folks, that means like, do you think that's a great thing, or did you kind of want to see them play at each other's venue?
So I have my own opinions about Florida, Georgia, and since I'm in Georgia right now, I know dog fans hate when I call it Florida, Georgia, but I have to explain myself every time because they would want me to call it Georgia, Florida.
Please do.
Listen, I went to high school in Florida. Yeah, I went to high school in Florida. I went to college in Florida. I say it on the show all the time. So while I was there, and my sister is a UF alum, I've been to several as a college student. I always heard it referred to as Florida, Georgia. So dog fans, forgive me for calling it that. Keeping it in Jacksonville matters not to me if you really want to know, but my opinion is this. I do think that they need to find a way to rotate it. And my rotation would be home and home. So a game in Gainesville, a game in Athens, and then a game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and a game in Jacksonville. So if you're a senior and you do all 4 years, you will have had games at the Swamp, at Sanford Stadium, in Jacksonville, and in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think that would be really neat, and I think it would be fair, right? Because Jacksonville, after all, is still in Florida. That's a very short drive for Gator fans to leave from Gainesville and just go north a little bit. And so it would be the same for Athens to Atlanta. So for me, if anybody's listening to me out there, I know my opinion really doesn't matter.
It matters. It matters.
I think that would be a cool way. It would be a cool way to reward players to be able to play in all 4 venues in the biggest game of the season. The Dogs and the Gators don't like each other. This rivalry in Jacksonville, they started playing it in 1933. So when you talk to Gator fans or you talk to Dog fans who are a little more seasoned, they talk about the history of the game, and a lot of them like it to be in Jacksonville. And I will say Jacksonville loves to have it, Scott, because millions upon millions of dollars come into the city on that weekend alone. So for Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville, it's a great thing. But for me, when it comes to college football, I think what would be a great thing is seeing the Dogs play in the Swamp and seeing the Gators play in Sanford Stadium. That's just my opinion, but there is nothing like playing at Sanford Stadium on a Saturday or in the Swamp on a Saturday. I think, speaking for Dogs players, I think it would be a heck of a college experience to be able to go to the Swamp and earn a win there. It is a very tough stadium to play in, and as of right now, they don't get the opportunity to do that. And Gators don't get the opportunity to come to Athens and win on that field between the hedges. I got to give you a quick story, though, Scott. So in 1994 and 1995, This is the history I like to give on the game. Those were the only 2 years since 1933 that the Florida-Georgia game was not played in Jacksonville, and that's because there were renovations being made to the stadium in Jacksonville. So those 2 years, it was home and home. In 1994, the Dogs went to the Swamp and got beat by the Gators. The following year, between the hedges, 1995. You want to know how many points the Gators scored on the Dogs?
How many?
Do you know?
I don't.
52 points.
Woo!
Okay? They were the first team to ever hang 50 points on the Dogs at Sanford Stadium. And I want to quote Steve Spurrier, the coach at the time, the good old ball coach, what he said after the game. He said very clearly that he wanted to be the first opponent to hang half 100 on the Dogs between the hedges. And that's exactly what they did. Those 52 points are still the most scored on a team at Sanford Stadium, which that team would obviously be the Dogs. But no other team has ever been able to beat that record. So there is a little bit of history there, and I know right now the Dogs would love to go to the Swamp because obviously the Dogs have had the Gators number here in the last few years and repay that favor.
See, look, I've only been introduced to SEC football for a couple years. I was looking forward to the Dogs having to go down to the Swamp. I was looking forward to the Gators having to come up and play out in Athens. I thought that would have been pretty cool. So I actually do like the idea if you're talking about rotating and everything like that. But look, I'm with tradition. I understand how important tradition is. I grew up covering, I cover a lot of Ohio State and Michigan games, so I know about tradition and everything like that. But yeah, the Swamp to me is one of the greatest venues in all of college football. I just love how it looks. The fans is real crazy down there. I think it'd be awesome for the Dogs to play in that stadium, man.
And players want it. It's not like they don't welcome it. Of any current or former players, Dogs players I've talked to, they're like, yeah, we want to do that. We want to go there. And to be specific, Scott, the contract that Florida and Georgia have with the city of Jacksonville ran through 2023. And in the contract, it said that there could be an option of an extension. So that's what happened today. They are accepting the extension.
Gotcha.
So now they'll play the 2024 and 2025 games in Jacksonville at TIAA Bank Field. But that doesn't mean that things won't change in 2026. I'm sure the city of Jacksonville is going to continue to push and continue the negotiations, and they'll want to keep that game right where it is. But if you ask coaches, they'll tell you that recruiting that weekend, it's tough because you basically lose a game to recruit, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the problem when it comes to those games, is that I think it changed last season where players, like recruits, can now watch the game in the stands, but they can't hang around the team. They can't go talk to coaches and stuff, but they can still come to the game. They can get tickets. Like that, to me, I think is the legal, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what's legal in the NCAA right now. Before, they couldn't come to games at all. So that's where it gets a little tricky, and I myself understand why coaches would want to move the game because you would get a recruiting weekend where, not to mention, you get those recruits there and you can show them around and all that, but it would be a heck of an atmosphere either way, whether it be in Gainesville or Athens. That might make a recruit want to go to the school. I mean, if I know Kirby, he would have the best recruits, the ones he's trying to get. He would have all of them lined up on the sideline during that game, because that's when Sanford Stadium would shine. It would be loud. The atmosphere would just be unreal. So I can understand a coach's perspective in that sense, and I know that you probably could understand that as well.
For sure, yeah. And I did read where Kirby was kind of, he kind of detailed that and what makes, that game sort of difficult for recruits and everything. But, I guess they'll just have to stick it out for at least a little while longer, right? I mean, it is what it is, and, Kirby will be fine. I'm pretty sure recruiting at UGA is still going to be okay. I don't think Kirby's got to worry about that a whole lot. So let's go on. We got the Celtics tonight. Let's talk about some NBA here. So the Celtics last night, I know we joked around a lot with our buddy Miles yesterday. The Celtics came out on top. They actually came to play last night, beat up on the Miami Heat. That series is now 3-1. So obviously the Celtics still have a pretty steep deficit to try to come back from. Emily, is it realistic, and I'll give my take after yours, is it realistic that the Celtics could actually rip off 3 more straight games and make NBA history? Because no team's ever come back down 3-0. So can the Celtics be the first team to do that?
Hey, Scott, is Miles listening right now?
Miles is like
flashing.
He flashed up a sign as soon as he heard the word Celtics. I just saw a white sign looking right ahead. I can't tell what it says, but he's super excited.
So I'm just wondering, Miles, are we still saying 4 days in October or what?
He still is.
4 days in May isn't happening. 4 days in May is not happening, okay? Let's just put that to bed right now. I talked to Miles last night after the game, and he was happy as could be, big old smile, and I was happy for him. But Miles, I think I remember Miles saying, and this was late last night, so forgive me, Miles, if I don't say it exactly the way you did, but I'm pretty sure you said your Celtics had to give it everything they had to be able to beat Miami.
Yeah.
So doing that 4 games in a row is going to be very hard.
It's going to be tough. Look, I mean, that game, it all kind of came together last night. They played with the sense of urgency that you would think a team like the Celtics would. They were the second best team in the Eastern Conference the entire year. That looked more like the Celtics last night. Our buddy Miles has a sign now that says anything is possible. That's now the slogan. It's not 4 days in October anymore. Now it's anything is possible. Look, I'm sort of with him. Look, if there's any team that could ever come back from a 3-0 deficit, I think this is the kind of situation, right? The Miami Heat were the last seed to get in. They barely snuck in. They were like a quarter away from going home. They sneak in through the play-in game, and the Celtics were kind of, I think, they were pretty much like the Vegas betting favorite to win the NBA championship. So when you look at the dynamic of this, now 2 out of the next 3 games are in Boston. Could it happen? I don't know.
Anything is possible, yes. But I don't think that this is possible.
Gotcha.
I don't think this is happening. Joe Mazzulla today, the head coach for the Celtics, in his press conference, he said he expects Miami to be more aggressive, and of course they're going to be more aggressive, and that they have to answer it with physicality, and they have to, be very detailed on defense. And he said the difference between game 3 and 4 was that they played more together, there was more communication, and that they have to stick together, in the next 3 if they want to do this thing. And I believe a team when they show me who they are, Scott. And in the first 3 games, the Celtics showed me who they were, and the Heat also showed me who they were. So, as you know in sports, it's very hard to sweep a team. 4 straight is very hard to do, even though the Denver Nuggets made it look very easy against the Lakers. I just think right now the Heat are okay with where they are, and that we're going to believe who the Heat are. And like I said yesterday, they've been beating Boston on almost everything. And I expect them, yes, to come out more aggressive in Game 5 and just absolutely pound the Celtics, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, I still think the Heat win that series, but look, just the way the dynamic is sort of set up in this series with the Celtics being one of the best teams in the NBA all season long, they really didn't look like themselves in the first 3 games. They looked more like themselves last night. I don't know. Anything is possible. I still think the Heat is going to put this away, probably in Game 6, but we'll see. So let's quickly get to Ja Morant today and more NBA news. It was kind of a crazy morning. He had a series of tweets where he tweeted out love for his mom, tweeted out love for his dad, tweeted out love for his daughter, and then just said bye. So that, of course, that Ja Morant's one of the most popular players in the NBA. So, of course, when you do things like that on social media, those are very cryptic tweets. People are going to show concern. They're going to show. This has really been a rough last, and I guess you could say some of it self-inflicted last few months for Ja Morant, just with some of his antics on social media and everything. Just kind of quickly, what's your take on that, Emily?
This is tricky, right? So, there was a wellness check that was made on him. I think it's important to say that. And Ja Morant is fine as far as the wellness check is concerned.
Right.
Whether he's going through things, with his mental health, obviously that's not something we would know other than how he reacts and acts. But for athletes, Scott, and you know this, sports is like a way of life. A lot of athletes, sports gets them out of certain situations from a young age. Like you get to leave your home, whether it's a good or bad situation, and go and dream on a field somewhere or a court somewhere. And that's like your safe haven. And I feel like right now, Ja Morant doesn't have a safe haven because he's gotten himself in trouble with, showing firearms on social media. And he's taken full responsibility for that. But I don't think that he has, what keeps him sane right now, which is the sport of basketball. And this is just my opinion. This is not facts. I haven't talked to Ja Morant. But he's probably struggling with that a little bit. Taking something away from anybody, whether it be sports, love, that's tough. That's really, really tough. So while he put himself in this situation, I also think that keeping him away from the sport is probably not the best idea either, even though, again, it's his fault.
Yeah, and I'll kind of combine this here, my part of this, with my final thought here. I think that, when you see Ja Morant, look, he was just over at Overtime Elite a few weeks ago when I was over there for an event. In the crowd, you would have thought Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan just walked in, man. It was the loudest roar when he walked in. He's so popular among younger NBA fans and everything. And look, we don't know how that sort of pressure can get to anyone, right? We can all say what we would do if we were in his situation, what we would do if we had that kind of money. We can say what we would do if we were his family. But the fact of the matter is that every individual is different. Every family dynamic is different. And it's just really hard to know what's going on in his head. I just hope that he gets the right amount of help. I hope he, first of all, wants help, and I hope that he gets the right amount of help to sort of get everything back online for him, because he's got the best part of his career and just the best part of his life right in front of him. And I would just hate to see anything derail that, because he's worked so hard to get to this point. He's one of the great young players. He's one of the great young talents. He's one of the most popular young players. And I just think that, you know, I'm just going to pray he gets everything on the right track. So,
are we giving final thoughts real quick, Scott?
yeah, that was my final thought. I mean, that's really all I have. What do you have for your final thought, Emily?
So, being at Truist Park tonight, game 3 of 3 between the Dodgers and Braves, the two best teams in the NL. I've said it the last 3 nights. I love it, and I'm going to tell you why. Seats in here are packed tonight.
Nice.
And you feel like it's the weekend, because the weekend at the ballpark is usually packed. But the last 3 nights, I mean, the crowds have been crazy. No, the Braves have not been winning, but the crowds have been crazy because they want to watch a good matchup. And what, to me, is great about it is, again, I said it earlier, Freddie Freeman is the one laughing right now. The Braves, you know, from what we know, could have possibly re-signed him, and they went with Matt Olson, and then Freddie Freeman had to move on and go to the Dodgers. And like I said last season, the emotions were raw and almost shocking to me to see a professional player react the way he did. I had never seen that before. Not being able to get it together. He could not compose himself. I mean, he was just sobbing. And that was last season. And I remember vividly, Scott, seeing him in the dugout last season during this series, and he was sitting by himself on a bench while the rest of his teammates were standing. Well, I don't know about you, Scott, but last night when Jason Hayward hit that home run, I think it was the top of the 3rd, he is Freddie Freeman's best friend, and they get to play together now. And Freddie Freeman was in the dugout with the rest of his teammates standing, cheering, smiling. So time heals all wounds. And I think Freeman is now accepting his situation, and he's perfectly fine where he is, which I think is great because he's been nothing but a class act.
Well, look, it really sounds to me like the guy didn't even want to leave. I mean, it really seems, just from everything I sort of see, sort of his reactions, it seems like he still wanted to be here, but, obviously things didn't work out. That wasn't able to happen. He's a Dodger now, and let's hope the Braves can beat him tonight, right, so they can salvage something from this series. So that has been Sports Tonight. I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman. Emily, thank you so much. Don't have too much fun over there at Truist, right?
No, not at all. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Thank you, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks for watching.